Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Pink Floyd Completion Project. This album ain't good. Today we're looking at Identity by Z, which was a musical duo composed of Richard Wright and a dude called Dave Harris, who was part of some new wave band. I can't be bothered to remember what new wave band it was. This album has aged horrendously. No matter which way you try to remaster it, you're not going to remove 80s textures because it is baked into the literal fabric of what it is. So obviously, Rick Wright, this was the time, in between, the Wall Tour and Momentary Lapse of Reason, where Richard Wright was not a member of Pink Floyd. So again, wasn't involved with the final cut. I don't think he was. No, actually, I know. He was not involved with Rick's 84 solo album. And so this is his 1984 solo album, for the lack of a better term. The first song on the album is Confusion. You may have heard it. I don't know. I've never heard anything from this album out in the wild. Yeah, Confusion is 80s pop bullshit. It's got this awful drum machine. It's almost cartoonishly 80s. This whole album is so 80s that it's almost spoofing it, but the lyrics aren't funny. So it's very clearly trying to be serious, and it's bad. It has not aged well. I'm gonna sound like a broken record by the end of this. This album is just not aged well. I put it on, and from the first note, I was just like, hello, 1984. It's so bad. Voices, it's an ambient-ish intro. It's better than the first one. This one's actually kind of decent. If there is one song I do recommend from this album, it's Voices. It's okay. It's decent. I do kind of feel Rick's touch on this a little bit, but not as much as two other songs later down the line. But I don't, it was, so little that I couldn't even be bothered to write it down. And Rick doesn't sing at all on this album, which kind of sucks, because Rick's got a beautiful voice. He sounds much better than Dave Harris. Sorry. Private Person. There's this awful drum machine opening. It's really bad 80s synths, and the vocals are buried under 80s sounds. This is going to be another one of those reviews where I'm just reading off my notes the entire time, because I've heard this album once before. I didn't think it was bad at that point, but that was before I listened to, an album every single day for, since January of this year. So it's not, it's easy for your opinion to change when you listen to stuff with, an actual identity for almost a year. Strange Rhythm. The intro is composed of stupid noises. The vocals are drunken, and it's got these African textures, which I don't like. I don't like them in any song. I don't. All right? Sorry. I just don't like them. And it's the longest song on the album, and it feels like it. Yeah. Cuts Like a Diamond is another song. It's got this, twinkly pan flute intro. Right? And this is one where it feels like it does have Rick's touch, so it is slightly above most of the rest of the album, but not really. I still say Voices is the best one on this album. It's, slow and ambient, and it's the first song with a guitar solo worth noting. It's the only song with a guitar solo worth noting. I don't know who played the guitar. The only personnel that I could find was Rick and Dave Harris. So, yeah. By Touching, that's another song. It's got this intro that sounds like the end of Carnival 9 Part 3 by ELP. It's it's very strange. It feels like if I put this in a playlist directly after the end of Carnival 9 Part 3, the transition would be mildly seamless, but you would jump to 70s synths to 80s synths. And then it's got this shitty, stupid fucking hip hop beat. The reverb on the vocals is horrendous. It sounds like a Sega Genesis game. That's what it sounds. How Do You Do It? Second to last song on the album. It's bad. Cool slap bass doesn't save it. That's all I had to say about that one. And then finally, Seems We Were Dreaming. The third song I feel Rick's touch on, another semi-ambient one, only song with an organ, and it does feel like a good way to close this album. It is somewhat decent, but it's not great. So yeah, that being said, I still think it's better than Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking, because the Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking is literally the same song over and over with brief breaks for 40 minutes. 36 minutes out of the 42 minutes of that album feels like you're listening to the same song, because basically you are. So on that note, it's better. But David Gilmour is still on the top of the 80s solo albums for me. I know I have one more to look at, which is Nick Mason's Profiles, and then I can get into Momentary Lapse of Reason. But this album is not good unless you really like new wave, or you are, like me, a Pink Floyd completionist. That is the only reason you should listen to this, because other than that, it's not like a hidden gem from the 80s that's aged really well, that uses the technology of the time to its advantage. No, it's just bad. It's not good. Again, Rick doesn't sing on it, which sucks. So, yeah. So, with that, I would like to thank you all very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave a like on it. If you want to continue along this journey with me, this musical journey with me, please feel free to subscribe. If you have something to add in the comment section down below, please do so. If you want to hear me talk about something other than music, I have a podcast called Dorkies with two of my buddies. I will link the most recent episode of that in the description below. If you want to hear me talk about David Gilmour and Roger Waters' solo albums from this decade, I will leave links to the two previous videos in the description below as well. If you want to hear what I happen to be listening to that day, or a 15-second segment of it at least, please follow me on Instagram at Sean_Heaster1979. And with that, I would like to thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one, which will be Nick Mason's Profiles. Bye-bye.